Last week, we talked about offensive players who didn't get much time playing last year. So obviously, we got to flip the script and talk the defensive players who didn't get much time playing last year. But that will change this year on this edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers that are here every day. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcasts, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast as well at LO_Sun Devils. Guys, it's picking up where we left off. Last week, we talked about some Sun Devils who didn't get much playing time last year, whether it was due to injury or whether it was due to being placed somewhere on the depth chart that wasn't exactly ideal. But we're talking about defensive players this time around. Some of them, some very obvious names. Others, maybe you didn't really think about before, and who knows? That's what we're here to talk about today, though. So I really struggled trying to figure out what to do. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go one person at each level of the defense. I wasn't sure if I wanted to just stockpile it with the players I think are going to break out, but I ultimately decided to try and do a good mix of both. I think some of them are kind of names that we already anticipate are going to break out. Some of them are names where you're kind of like, really? That guy? Okay, maybe we'll have that conversation, right? That's what I tried to do. That I will go ahead and throw out the only person that didn't make this list that I was really hesitant to not have on the list was Michael Matus. He is definitely my biggest honorable mention. My only holdout with Matus is I just don't feel I can guarantee him playing time in his defense right now, just with how much depth, talent is returning, but also coming in via the transfer portal. Like they brought in Clayton Smith via the transfer portal, a former 5-star prospect who looks absolutely magnificent. They've got Prince Dorbaugh that transferred as well. Ashley Williams is an incoming freshman. They've got Garen Stansbury and Anthony Cooper returning, although Cooper might be getting some more time on the interior. Like, you just look at all the depth on this defensive line, and I feel like it's very difficult to say that Michael Matus, who's coming back from an ACL injury, is guaranteed to have legitimate starting time or even like significant playing time whatsoever. I do think he's going to be a very vocal leader for the team, and I do think that he does get on the field quite a bit. But if you're asking me to like guarantee production for him, I just don't know that I can, and it's not to his fault at all. Coming off an ACL injury, he should be able to take as much time as you need. It's just unfortunate in college, and with him being a graduate senior, like time is not on his side. And I just don't know how that's going to play a factor for him. But for what it's worth, I did really strongly consider him. But for the defensive line, I decided to go with a regular guy I talk about on the podcast all the time. He's been a primary backup for his first 2 years at Arizona State, but it hasn't stopped him from either leading the team in sacks or tying for the lead in sacks. It's BJ Green. Everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. He's in for his breakout season this year. To his career, he has played 18 games and recorded 7.5 sacks, 9.5 tackles for loss. The dude is just an impact player when he does find himself on the football field. He just hasn't been able to get out there consistently. And I don't think it has anything to do with play and level of play for BJ Green, because clearly when he's out there, he's an animal and he's a big-time difference maker. This is just a team that has had a luxury of depth along the defensive line to be able to rotate guys in and out and figure out what they want to do with, the veteran pieces. Like they've had Trevez Moore, they've had TJ Pesafea, they've had Nessa J. Silvera transferred in last year. Like, you've had so many guys that have provided different amounts of production for you in different ways too. So maybe BJ Green was just not well-rounded enough to get on the football field. But I think that whatever the reasons to have kept him on the bench for the first 2 years of his career at Arizona State, you can probably throw that out the window in year 3 because he is shed some weight. He's playing some edge rusher for the team, and he just looks absolutely dominant. He's clearly the best player on the field for the defense when he was out there during the springtime. I don't see any reason why that's going to slow down. BJ Green is just a very natural pass rusher, and it looks as though he's been able to combine and convert that speed to power that is going to be able to ascend his game to that next level. He truly just looks like this dynamic, complete pass rusher when he's on the field for the Sun Devils during spring ball. I feel like that's going to be a lot more of the same come training camp, and then obviously when the season comes around, this is a new team. This is not the same Sun Devils we've seen over the past few years. It's a new head coach. It's a new defensive coordinator. They're going to want their best guys on the football field, no matter how old they are, how young they are, how much playtime experience they have, whatever it is. They're going to want their best guys on the field, and BJ Green is absolutely one of the best guys on this defense. They have to get him on the field. I feel like you would have to almost make up excuses at this point to find ways to keep him off of the football field. BJ Green's an absolute animal. I think going into this year, he should be a starter. It would take some kind of catastrophic drop off in play for him to not continue to be a starter throughout the year. Even if he's not a starter, which I still think would be very irresponsible, I think that this is a guy that's going to be a big time contributor for the team. Like, it wouldn't shock me if he did play in all 12 games, but maybe he only had like 2 starts, but he had a high volume of percentage on the field. Like, this is just a guy you want on the football field and your best 11 out there. He gives you the best opportunity to sack the quarterback. He gives you the best opportunity to disrupt the play that's going on in the backfield. BJ Green is just absolutely an animal. He's somebody that I don't know how Pac-12 teams are going to culminate answers for him. He's just too much, and he's a very unique build as a shorter guy at only 6'1". He's about 255 pounds is what he reported to us during spring camp, but he's fast, he's strong. He finds a way to win the reps. So sure, he's not built like an NFL player, but he plays like an NFL player. And I think that's going to be the big separation between him and whoever he's going up against, is he's got the mentality of, I'm simply better than you and I'm going to be better than you. So when we look at the players that I think are in for bigger seasons in 2023, BJ Green is absolutely the first guy who comes to mind for me. And it's not a coincidence that he is once again one of those guys for me. All right, I want to talk to you guys about our good friends over at FanDuel, because baseball season is in full swing and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers will get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to join today. Guys, I'm constantly using FanDuel as a betting degenerate, but I feel very happy with what they give me. The app is safe, it's secure, and you get your winnings absolutely instantly. Don't miss your chance to snag that no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. All right, let's go ahead and get back into our show. But before we get that far, Locked On's NBA mock draft special is here, and it's bigger than ever. Follow along the entire first round in a 6-episode ultimate mock draft experience that only Locked On can deliver. All episodes are available now on Locked On NBA Big Board, on YouTube, and wherever you're getting your podcasts. All right, let's get to player number 2. Player number 2 is somebody that, diehard fans probably know. Casual fans probably aren't too aware of this player. And it's not because this is a bad player or anything like that. It's because he has not had a chance to get onto the football field. With the depth that the Sun Devils have had at the linebacker position for the last several years, thanks to Merlin Robertson, thanks to Kyle Soley, thanks to Darian Butler, thanks to Eric Gentry and Connor Soley and everybody else that has lined up at the position for them over the last couple of years, it's been difficult for anybody to get playing time. But that's going to change this year. Now, keep in mind, the Sun Devils are going to roll out a lot of different packages. There's going to be a lot of 4-3 fronts, but there's also going to be a lot of nickel where they're probably dropping down the two linebackers. And when that happens, Travion Brown is, to me, ingrained as one of the starters as a transfer from Washington State and someone who's familiar with Brian Ward's defense. But then the team also went and picked up Jawan Mitchell, who is a redshirt senior transfer from Tennessee and is now the most veteran player on the team. Those are the top two linebackers, right, wrong, or indifferent, simply because of experience. But for the third role, because there's going to be three starting linebackers, and even if the team is rolling out nickel on a like starting roster kind of thing where you would have Jordan Clark as a starter, there's still going to be a third linebacker more often than not, I promise you. And that guy is going to be Will Shaffer. I really went back and forth between Shaffer and James DeJoncum. And I ultimately decided to go with Shaffer because Schaefer's been with the program longer. And I would like to think that that means something, but at the same time, this is a team that's going to be wanting to get its best players out on the field. It's not going to be about, who's been here the longest, who's been waiting the longest, who's the former higher touted recruit, whatever it is. The Sun Devils are just going to want to get their best players on the football field. And I think that Shaffer is going to have to really, really show that he deserves to be on the football field more than some of the other guys, because James Joncum did get some decent playing time last year compared to Shaffer. Shaffer did appear in 12 games, recorded 9 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. That was the extent of his contributions for the team. Not that James Joncum was really that much better. I'm gonna attempt to pull them up, but point is, like, it's not Joncum had 15 tackles for the team and no other significant statistics. So it's not even like one guy has more of an edge than the other. I'm kind of going with my heart on this one, and I think that Shaffer being on the team a little bit longer and waiting and biding his time and not transferring out when he could have transferred maybe play some kind of role into it. But again, I'm not here to guarantee anything because Caleb McCullough has also been with the team about the same amount of time. To my knowledge, I don't think he transferred in. There's also going to be some younger guys as well. They're going to be trying to fight for time, like Tate Romney and Crew Jackson and Kavion Thunderbird. But I look at Will Shaffer and I see a guy who just exudes what it means to be a Sun Devil. He plays with an edge. He's got the savviness at the position, but he's a vocal leader for the team too. And I think that that's going to be something important for him when he does finally get his opportunity on the field. He's a modern linebacker build at 6 foot 235. So he is a smaller dude, but again, he doesn't play small. He plays big. I think he plays with some authority, and I would like to see him get that opportunity. The problem for him is just the 2 transfers that have come in have more playing experience, with Travion Brown actually playing in this defense and then Jawan Mitchell actually having significant playing time during his days with Tennessee and playing in the SEC. Like, it's just the chips are stacked against all these linebackers, let alone Will Shaffer. But I do think that Schaefer is going to get an opportunity. I certainly hope he gets an opportunity, but we'll see. Like, this is just the first time since Schaefer has been here that the linebacker position is as close to wide open as it's going to be. Again, Mitchell and Brown should have spots locked down, but there's still a third position that should be open for anybody to come in. Schaefer's got as good an opportunity as anyone else. At a minimum, I think that Shaffer is the third linebacker this year. I think he will play a role similar to what Connor Soley did last year, because while Connor Soley was a starter for the team simply because of, like, what do you call it? Like, having to start 3 players at the position, he wasn't necessarily like a full-time contributor for the team. Like, he had 30 tackles a year ago. I think that at a minimum, that's probably what Schaefer's looking at, is the third linebacker role, somebody who gets rotated out. He's a key depth guy, maybe a special teamer. I don't know. But I do think that Shaffer is in for a bigger role than what he has been seeing. I just don't know how it could get smaller than what he's been doing. I feel like he's just due for an inevitable boost in playing time, boost in production. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Shout out to the everydayers that are here every day. If you're not an everydayer, make yourself an everydayer. All right. Last guy to talk about. I'm very curious about the overall opinion of this player amongst Sun Devil fans. Former 4-star recruit. He's got the build of an NFL player at the cornerback position at 6'1", 190. He had redshirted his freshman year. He started getting some decent playing time about halfway through the year last year. I thought he was solid. I don't think he's a starter right now. I don't know if he's a starter at any point in the year. But I think that this is a guy that you're slowly like grooming to eventually become a starter for this team, and that's Isaiah Johnson. Looking at Isaiah Johnson, he just looks like a starter at the position. Again, he's got the build at 6'1", 190. He's fast. He can mirror and match. I think that there's a lot of potential here. It's just a matter of getting to that point. The problem for him is this is a pretty good looking secondary for the Sun Devils. Ro Torrence is absolutely the number one corner. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He would have to have just a just beyond words terrible start to the year to get usurped to the number one spot and to get benched. Like, Ro Torrence just looked so dynamic last year. He looks like he's on his way to the pros. Across from him, Ed Woods played really good. And I think that Ed Woods should have a starting spot locked down as well. Jordan Clark is definitely the starting nickel, but, I don't think Isaiah Johnson is a nickel guy. I think he's an outside guy. So after Torrance and after Woods is when the competition starts to get very interesting. And this is where I think Isaiah Johnson could be your number 3 guy right now. Looking at what's there, you've got Mason Williams is coming back. I do like his potential as well. I think that he could potentially be the number 3 guy for you as well. I'm not willing to sleep on him whatsoever. They brought in Roman Rashada via the transfer portal from Ole Miss. They've got Gene Boyd, who's coming back, RJ Reagan, who will be probably competing more in the nickel slot than anything else, but he could still compete for some playtime as well. They've got some freshmen like Keith Abney and Keontae Bradley, Lennox Lawson. There's smaller guys like D Ford, transfer from Austin P, who is coming in. I'd be interested to see if he could compete for an outside role, if he is probably locked into a nickel slot. The point is, there's a lot of really good depth, talent, and competition at the corner spot, and particularly the outside corner spot. I think right now, what Isaiah Johnson should be looking to do would be to audition himself for a bigger role this year and potentially a starting role next year. Because let's say Ro Torrence has another masterful year and builds off of what he did and ends up becoming one of the top corners in the conference. He would need to consider going pro as a redshirt junior and as somebody who has exquisite build as a 6'3", 210-pound corner with the ability to lock down guys the way that he showed last year. You would need to consider going pro at that point. Ed Woods is a redshirt junior. He would have to be absolutely masterful to be able to consider that. I feel like he's probably coming back for next year. With Isaiah Johnson, he's still your 3rd guy if you're not including nickel. If you are, then Clark obviously is. But this is a player who is probably looking to play the long game right now, because I don't know how much starting time is available for anybody at the corner spot. I think this is about as locked down a position as it's going to be at the moment, because with Torrance, Woods, and Clark all returning, that's your top 3 guys, and I don't think it's really up for debate unless Johnson just comes out in training camp and is just, you can't throw on him. Then he could probably take Ed Wood's spot, but this is a great position group. And I think the other thing that really works in Isaiah Johnson's favor is Brian Carrington as the defensive backs coach is going to be able to help him get to that next level. I think that Carrington's a very smart young coach who can get the most out of these guys. He's shown some brilliance as a recruiter, and I think that if he's able to get anybody to the next level, you're here for it. And I think that Isaiah Johnson could potentially be one of the guys who could reap the benefits of having an offseason to work with Carrington and refine his skills. To me, this is going to be up to Isaiah. I think this is going to be ball is in his court. How high on the depth chart do you want to be? How much playing time do you want to have? How much of an impact player do you want to be in 2023? I think that this is completely up to Isaiah Johnson. When you look at the talent that he possesses from an athletic standpoint, from a game playing standpoint, I don't think that there's very many defensive backs on this roster that are going to match him. He's a former 4-star recruit for a reason. It's going to be up to him to decide how good he wants to be. And I think that if he's all in and decides that he wants to be the best defensive back on this team, he can be. That's the reason why he makes my list. I think that Isaiah Johnson is definitely going to be in for a bit of a breakout season in 2023. The problem is I just don't know. It really depends what your benchmarks and what your goalposts are when you're talking about breakout. Because if you're talking about starting, I don't know that Isaiah Johnson is a multi-game starter this year, short of like injuries. And I don't predict those. I don't know if Isaiah Johnson is also going to be a stat stuffer. I don't think this is a guy who's going to have 5 interceptions or 10 pass breakups or anything like that. But I do think that this is a player who got an increase in playing time last year, about halfway through the year. And I think that going into this year, as long as he wants it, he's going to be somebody who's going to be able to play as much as he would like to play. I think he's going to be someone who you're going to have a really difficult time keeping him off the football field. That's what I'm hoping for out of Isaiah Johnson. That's what I'm projecting out of Isaiah Johnson. But I'm excited for him. Who are the guys you're excited for that didn't get much playing time last year? Let me know in the comments. Let me know on Twitter. You can find me at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Levels. But that's all that I got for you guys on today's episode of the show. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. Remember, wherever you're getting your podcast, to hit like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Again, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. Until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On.